right, Stuck. Nice lead for you now, 57-53. You're up by more than a field goal. For everyone that doesn't know, we do 2 points for our first two picks, one for the third, another one for the total, which we'll do in the next segment. If you sweep all of them, you get another bonus point. So for our week 16 6-pack, because we got all these games spread out, we still won't count the Thursday game. That will be out of the running for the contest, but we're going to open it up to all of the other games because we do have 3 games on Monday, so it's not like just a Monday night game. So we'll do those, will be included. The all of the Sunday games obviously will be included, and the Saturday games as well will be included. So for week 16, we're just doing the 6-pack. It won't necessarily be the Sunday 6-pack, just a 6-pack. With that said, Stuck, where are you going first?
All right, for my first pick of the week 16 weekend holiday 6-pack, I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens plus 5.5 at the San Francisco 49ers. I told you this last week. I'm fortunately going first, so I will be taking the Ravens. This is, first of all, Harbaugh as a dog, pretty much anywhere, any place, anytime, with anybody at quarterback, I'm going to back them. Ravens 19-4 against the spread as an underdog since 2018. Lamar Jackson 15-1 against the spread as an underdog or favorite of less than a field goal. Lamar Jackson also 19-1 straight up against the NFC. I'm sure you'll see that a lot over the weekend. Part of that has some validity. A lot of that is, they're a lot better than many of the NFC teams they play. They're not playing a team like the 49ers who are better than them, but these NFC teams are not used to the Lamar Jackson speed, and there's kind of a, shell shock factor early on. You got to adjust to the angles and him creating plays with his legs. But there's a couple things that I like about this matchup. One, it is early in the week, but the 49ers could potentially have some major defensive losses. So last week they played without Armstead and Hargrave up front. Their day-to-day, Shanahan doesn't know if they're going to play. The Cardinals averaged 8 yards per rush. So their run defense is very vulnerable if one or both of them are out. You also had Lenoir, their corner, has been playing really well. He went out with a rib injury day-to-day also. Talked about this early in the season. The 49ers pass defense was problematic early in the season, and then they made a key change, and they took Isaiah Oliver out of the lineup, put Lenoir in as a starter, and their secondary started playing a lot better. So if he's out, then there's some potential holes again. And I have the better defense, the much better special teams, and I have Harbaugh and Lamar as an underdog in a game that I think is going to live up to the billing. I think this is field goal game. I know the Ravens will be ready. They'll be buttoned up. And I have to mention it because it's worth mentioning. The AFC over the NFC this year. Yeah, I think it's worth at least something. We saw it again with the Bills against the Cowboys last week. The AFC has had a great year against the NFC. Who have the 49ers lost to? They're 1-2 against the AFC North. They lost to PJ Walker. They lost to the Bengals at home. They beat the Steelers in the opener. I think this is too many points. I think as of right now, this is the favorite to be the Super Bowl matchup. I make it closer to 3.5. Give me the Ravens. Harbaugh as a dog. I think my prediction, 49ers win by a field goal.
Yeah, I like the Ravens as well. Any chance you think this gets to 6? I mean, 5.5, it's pushing it, but I would doubt it actually hits the 6. But do you think there's any chance of that?
I don't think so. So I already bought it at 5.5. I don't think that it does. If it does, I would assume it gets bought quick. But I think this is more likely to go to 4.5 than 6.
Would you pay for like minus 120 6, or do you think, because I know, I mean, it used to be 7-3, but now with the way teams are going for 2 and it's more like the overtime, you're just kind of protecting the 6 for a push. But would you do that?
Yeah, if you could find a cheap one out there, I don't hate it.
Okay. Yeah, I like that as well. Yeah, Ravens, I mean, high quality team, and Lamar just the off schedule things that you can't even really model. But I mean, man, that play he had last week against Jacksonville, where he was like got out of trouble. And I know people hate Collinsworth for slurping on all these quarterbacks, but that was like a slurpable play on that Lamar where he just threw it up after getting out of trouble. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Ravens win a game. Honestly, I think San Francisco's kind of been coasting a little bit. Now they're just coming off playing one of the worst teams in the league. Now it's kind of a little shock, step up in competition again. I mean, Niners have generally handled that well this year, but yeah, I think this should be a close game. All right, for my first pick, the second overall of the Week 16 6-pack, going with the Vikings +3 home dogs against the Lions. Not a usual Lions fade spot because this is an indoor game. Minnesota is still an indoor spot, but I think you're going to get a desperate Minnesota team still alive here for playoff positioning. And Minnesota, I keep saying this defense, I think it's being underrated. It's top 5 up in DVOA now, and obviously that's takes schedule adjustment into account. They had that one really bad game against Philadelphia, defending the run early in week 2. Since then, they're top 6 run defense as well, 7th against the pass, and that blitz is going to give Jared Goff some issues, even though it's indoors, because we all know by now Minnesota leads the NFL with a 50% blitz rate. Brian Flores has done an amazing job, and Jared Goff this year, give him his credit, when not blitz, Jared Goff, number 1 out of 41 qualified quarterbacks in PFF grade. So he's been excellent when the defense isn't really mixing it up, sending anything exotic at him, just standard 4-man rush. But when you blitz Goff, he goes from number 1 out of 41 to number 29 out of 41. So he becomes, barely a starter level quarterback when you blitz him. And again, this Viking defense blitzes teams 50% of the time, more than anybody in the league by far. So I think the Viking defense, it's a quality defense, but I think the scheme also will give Goff some issues, and it helps that Minnesota can defend the run reasonably well. I assume you're still going to get some big plays from Jahmyr Gibbs because he doesn't seem to be contained lately. But on the other side, Minnesota, saw it earlier in the year with Cam Akers. Hopefully this time it's for real. Ty Chandler, just excellent game in place of Alexander Madison. So looks like Chandler should have no worse than a 50-50 split. I think they should just give him the whole feature back role, but he's averaging nearly a full yard per touch more than Alexander Madison this year. Better success rate on both runs and receptions. And then Justin Jefferson being back is big. 65% receiving success rate. That's second to only Brandon Ayuk among wide receivers. So Nick Mullins, he's not
Cam Sutton, Shadow Jefferson. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. And Nick Mullins is just the latest in the line of these backup quarterbacks. But because, we've talked about this with Minnesota, they've low key somehow been able to build a deep enough roster to where it's next man up hasn't really hurt them. And then the coaches are just getting the most out of these guys, taking like lesser talent and getting the most. So we saw that last week with Nick Mullins, keeping him in the game, was able to throw for over 300 yards. Did throw a couple bad picks, but such is the life. I think Goff could do the same against this blitz-heavy defense. So not really looking at like a major disadvantage here at quarterback with Mullins. He can get the ball to these guys, Jefferson, Hockenson. Addison, stepping up big is huge because earlier in the year, Addison was more of a third wide receiver when Jefferson was in the game. Now Addison's playing every snap with Jefferson. So I think this Minnesota offense is still dangerous. They're at home. They're desperate. The defense can bother Goff. Detroit's just not playing as well lately. And especially on defense, Detroit, you've mentioned it a bunch, Stuck. That defense is just sinking down. They're especially in the pass game. So again, like you said, Jefferson matched up on Sutton. That's a dub for Jefferson. If you sell out to stop him. Addison scored 2 touchdowns last week. You sell out to stop them. TJ Hockenson is going to burn you over the middle. And now, hopefully, if you're just selling out to stop the pass, Minnesota can actually hurt you on the ground with Ty Chandler. So not to mention, in terms of our luck rankings, Detroit, one of the luckier teams in the league, eighth luckiest, Minnesota, 21st. So it's a luck mismatch as well. We've seen the trends in this spot, week 16 conference dogs, playing, with they have won less than 50% of their games against the spread. in the last 5, 78, 45, and 363% since 2015. Week 16 conference dogs with not more than one against the spread win in their last 4, 55, 28, 1, 66% since 05. So this is a bounce back spot for Minnesota that's kind of been, they've been in every game, but they've kind of been up and down a little bit. I think they get a desperate division win here, because I think that blitz against Goff will slow Detroit down just enough for Minnesota to pull it off.
Yeah, I agree with this one. Like I had the Lions last week. I think that it was just more about the Broncos and all the regression hitting them at once. I was actually really impressed with the Vikings. It took them 50 miracles for the Bengals to win that game. And it's really a shame. Like in the NFC, I played this for what it's worth, so I agree. It's really a shame in that in the NFC, the 49ers are head and shoulders above everybody else. And then I think you have the Cowboys and then the Eagles. And then it's like, the Lions, if they play at home, they just don't have the defense, and they're going to have to go on the road. The Rams, it could be a chippy dog, but they don't have the defense. If Kirk Cousins was healthy, the Vikings would be a legit sleeper in the AFC. You have 2 ridiculous receivers, good tight end, found your back, great offensive line with 2 really good tackles, and then this defense. That's the biggest difference, and that's the Flores bump with this defense playing as well as it is. If they had Cousins, they would be a legit problem in the NFC. And they could still win a game or 2, but they just don't have the ceiling now. But I agree here. I like the Vikings at home. Anything a field goal or above. For my second pick and the third overall of the Week 16 holiday weekend 6-pack, I am going with the Easton Stick led Los Angeles Chargers plus 12 at home against the Buffalo Bills, putting my perfect Bills record on the line against the spread this year. I knew I was going to bet this. I took some 14 early in the week. I would bet this down to 11.5. This is basically every once in a while during the NFL season, I'll have pure spot plays. There's no matchup. There's nothing I'm going to tell you about the X's and O's. This checks every box from a spot play perspective, and then I showed enough line value to play it. So number one, we're selling high on the Bills here. The market on the Bills have been a fun roller coaster to bet, because I've just been fortunate enough to be on the right side of it. Bet them early in the year. Had all those defensive injuries. I started fading them. Everyone jumped off and said the Bills stink. And then, I've bet them the last 3 weeks. Now everyone's saying the Bills Super Bowl. So a little, sell high spot after 3 big games. Now you're going across country in a short week, means more late in the year. They just played the Cowboys, Eagles, and Chiefs. Chargers extended rest. New head coach bump. What does that mean? Well, I think that they quit on Staley. So, I would assume that hope that they're going to rally here. This is basically becomes like a kind of a Super Bowl for them. They're not going to the playoffs. They can try and help ruin the Bills' season. And these are professional athletes. They were embarrassed. Gave up 60 plus to the Raiders, lost by 40. Teams are never as bad as they look. And look, double digit. Well, let me just say this. Teams that lose by 35 or more, usually a good bet in the NFL. Buying low on them, usually get their best effort the next week after they're embarrassed. Teams lost by 35 plus points the previous week, 75, 44, and 6 against the spread over the past 20 years, 63%, covering by about a field goal per game. When underdogs, after losing by 35 or more, 58, 29, and 5 against the spread, 67%. That includes 17 and 3 against the number when catching more than 10 points after losing by 35 or more, 85%. So double-digit underdog, that means they're a bad team. Some of them had backup quarterbacks as well, and they just lost by 35 plus. No one wants to back that team. Well, in this situation, which has only happened on average once a year over the past 20 years, 17 and 3 against the spread, covering by 10 points per game. A couple outright upsets in there as well, including 16 and 1 after the month of September. And teams who allowed 50 plus the week before covered at a 65% clip over the past 30 years. Going to get their best effort here. Bills riding high. Could come out a little flat. It could get like an Allen turnover early. This is just the spot. New coach bump. Short week going across the country. Extended rest for the Chargers. Bills off 3 big games. Probably not going to be as focused here for this one. I like the Chargers. Give me Easton Stick as a double-digit home dog. And one last one here. Double-digit home dogs in the NFL will always catch my eye. Double-digit road favorites in the NFL past 20 years, 53, 73, and 1 against the spread. I like the Chargers. I think this game's going to get weird. You'll know in the first quarter if the Chargers like rallied and come out, and if the Bills are flat. If that's the case, I think this will be close in the fourth. Bills probably pull it out, but I think this is the spot to back the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, you've had the feel on the Bills. I would have this would have been a game I would stay away from, but you make good points, especially about the bigger you get blown out in the NFL. I've definitely always kind of noticed that the next week, because it's just natural, even from a model perspective, right? Like now you have to factor in this massive point differential into the number, and then it's such an outlier that it's almost guaranteed to come down. So you're almost guaranteed to get somewhat of a.
Well, and then the market
edge
in general, and you have all these bettors that who wants to back the team that just lost by 50, right?
Yeah. I mean, just make sure you tie Stone Smart's hands behind his back on punt returns, because that had to be the worst penalty I think I've ever seen on special teams. And there's been some bad ones, but holding the punter when it was wide open. It was like Darius Davis was going to run away from him regardless. So yeah, that was.
Yeah, I also would say that this is sitting at 12, so there's no need to bet it now. Keep an eye on the market. 11 can be kind of key. So if it like ticks down to 11.5, bet it. But you might as well wait if you're listening to this and it's still at 12 to see if it goes back up. If it touches 13, because 12 you're in a dead zone. There's no watch to see which way it ticks.
All right, for my second pick, the 4th overall of the week 16 6-pack, I am going with the Pittsburgh Steelers +2 home dog against the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to try this again with the Steelers, who, I mean, I like buying these teams whenever the sky is falling on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin might be fired. The tradition's dead. But I think the Cincinnati team has been running a little hot. I think, Pittsburgh.
Number one in our elect rankings now.
Cincinnati. Yeah, I was about to say, finally, Pittsburgh, not the luckiest team. No Pennsylvania teams are the top team. Cincinnati has taken over.
Yeah, and Pennsylvania 2 and 3 now.
Yep. And I mean, you mentioned the Vikings getting some bad luck. That play where they had the pressure on Browning and he just throws up a prayer to T. Higgins, who makes an amazing. Yeah, but I mean, that one to T, that changed the game right there. And then the reach over. I mean, great play by Higgins, but you can't count on that happening week in and week out. And now you got
the Vikings also have 2 failed sneaks in a row to end the.
Oh my God, yeah, that reminds me of oh man, you're gonna know this. Remember the Barry Switzer? It was in like the mid 90s. Barry Switzer. It was like 4th and 1 before teams used to go for it, and he like went for it, and like I think he handed it to Emmett, but he got stopped, but they called a timeout, and then they come back out and do it again and get stopped. Like that's what that reminded me of.
That was
against the Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles, like I want to say 95, 90 or 93, one of those years.
Yeah, that was it was probably 95, 96, and it was tied in the 4th. And I think it was tied in the 4th, and they had 4th down in their own territory, which back then,
yes,
with 2 minutes to go. And back then, no one would ever go for it then. And so, yeah, they got the 2-minute warning was called before they.
That's what it was. Yeah. Yep.
And then they came back out, ran it again, and got stopped and lost.
That's what that reminded me of. Like, just like, come on. With Nick Mullins, like, come on, bro. And no, the worst part was Brandon Powell pushing him forward. Like, Brandon Powell is tiny. Yes. But I digress. So yes, Cincinnati. I mean, both teams injuries that will affect the Cincinnati passing game. Pittsburgh, KZ got suspended, and then looks like Minka's gonna miss. But Cincinnati, no Jamar Chase. That's big because now T Higgins, you could kind of game plan against him, and Tyler Boyd's been playing less. It's just a whole bunch of tight ends. I think for Cincinnati, it's just not really a offense that scares you without Jamar Chase. And Jake Browning's worst game came against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that was like the one time fading the Steelers, when they were I think they were favored, didn't work out in these last few
and the Steelers they should have won that game by about 25. They had about 400 yards of offense as the first game without Canada, so they were in that game.
Yeah. So this is kind of what the Steelers do. It's just like you think they're dead and they're gonna come back. I thought they played competitively last week, and then it just all came apart in that near the end of the first half for them. But you're gonna get their best effort here. And Mason Rudolph, if you look at his adjusted net yards per attempt, 5.1 for his career. Kenny Pickett 5.0, and Trubisky career as a Steeler 4.9. So there's really been no drop off. If anything, Rudolph probably has been the slightly better one over the span of their careers. Already mentioned Cincinnati #1 in luck, and then no DJ Reader on defense for Cincinnati on the interior. Yeah, top 10 PFF grade overall for defensive linemen. Top 10 grade in run defense, and top 10 grade in pass rush too. So even the interior pass rush takes a bit of a hit, but
the drop off. The most important thing is the drop off to his replacement.
Yeah, and we remember last year when this Reader missed a good chunk of the season, and the splits were like night and day. It was like they were allowing, like under 4 yards of carry, well under 4 yards of carry with Reader on the field, and high 4s, low 5s with Reader off the field. So Pittsburgh, anytime you can help this team run the ball, that's always important when you have a quarterback situation like this. But more importantly, this another one of these Tomlin rah-rah spots. We know he's 55-31 against the spread as a dog, 64%, 17-6 with 3 pushes, 74% against the spread as a home dog, 73% against the spread, 29-11 when you have an opponent with a better record, and the Steelers are a dog under Tomlin. And as a dog off a loss, 21-11, 66% against the spread. And then it doesn't happen often, so I don't know how much to put into this, but it did pop up on my Action Lab, so I thought I'd mention it because it's pretty interesting. But week 16 underdogs on a 3-game losing streak, 17-3 against the spread, 85% over the past 2 decades. So
17-3. That's
yeah, you had one too, a 17-3 trend.
17-3.
Yeah, so I mean, hey, we're both going with 17-3 trends for our second pick. What could go wrong back in Mason Rudolph and Easton Stick, right? So give me the Steelers +2.
I actually just played this. I was waiting to see if it would go to 3, but it's not. So yeah, it's down to 2 everywhere. So it's not going to go to 3. So I just played +2.
It's not going.
And yeah, I like this. The Reader loss is huge. The Chase loss is huge. And the Bengals have Browning's played well. Expiration date is coming. And then if you look historically, I mean, he's gotten away. If you look at adjusted completion percentage over expectation, like all the tip balls to the balls that he's just chucked downfield. And then a lot of it, like against the Colts, he had 250 yards passing, 210 were after the catch. He's getting a little bit too much love here. And then for what it's worth, like you have Mason Rudolph. I guess we're going with the Christmas theme here. I will say for the Bengals, though, I talked about this earlier in the year. Nick Scott, I said they should put Jordan Battle in, which they have, and that's helped a bit in their secondary. They benched Nick Scott. But now with Reader, like that is such a big loss in the middle, and the Steelers will be able to run it now. And they'll probably break some explosives, and that's like nice for a quarterback like Rudolph to rely on. And since 2019, there's been 99 quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks. If you look at adjusted EPA per play, Rudolph's 54th. Trubisky's 49th. Pickett is 58th. So there's really no discernible difference. And Trubisky has completely lost the plot. I mean, he was lost out there. So I would say that this is even an upgrade because he was completely lost. I think he was like shaking confidence and missing the easiest throws. And so I think this will provide a boost to the offense. The only thing I just hate is that, and by the way, this is the 4th or 5th law of thermodynamics. I think there's a 4th, but it's like informal. I don't know. Tomlin has to finish with an above 500 record. So he needs this win to do that. And then he'll probably lose at Seattle, and the Ravens will somehow have the 1 seed locked up, and then they'll win at Baltimore in week 18. Yeah, so there's really no difference, and I think Rudolph will provide a boost. The only thing that scares me is just if like things are going wrong early, because I think they'll show up. Like the body language on the Steelers sometimes, like especially the receivers, it's so bad. But yeah, this is a classic Thomas spot.
I mean, that's the Steelers voodoo, right? It's like the minute you think things could not get any worse, it's like they just come there and surprise you. So I mean, really, we're betting on the defense if we're betting on the Steelers anyway, right? We're not betting on George Pickens to suddenly turn his attitude around. So
yeah, should be a ton of pressure here too off the edge against those Bengals tackles. I think Orlando Brown has allowed the highest pressure rate in the NFL of any tackle. Although we'll talk about this game later. I have to mention this. So most pressures allowed by a left tackle this season, Orlando Brown, 50. Most sacks allowed, Becton, 11. So 50 pressures, 11 sacks. The Titans left tackle combo of Dillard, Duncan, Radins, and Petit Ferrer. I think they've had 4 guys for left tackle. So 50 pressures is the most by 1 and 11 sacks. The Titans left tackle combo this year is 76 pressures allowed and 20 sacks. They're not even playing Dillard, and they're playing Duncan, who's so bad. Anyway, we'll get to the Titans later.
That was just a nightmare. Like, it was like, all right, their line, it shouldn't be that bad. They should fit. No, it's that bad. It's that bad. But yeah, where are you going for your third?
All right, for my third pick and the 5th overall of the Week 16 holiday weekend 6-pack, I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons -1 at home against the Indianapolis Colts. Catch a falling knife here with the Falcons. Everyone says they're dead. Coach getting fired. This is mainly a fate of the Colts. I think the Colts are a fraud. Said it many times. And also Michael Pittman, concussion protocol. Taylor Moss still questionable. Right to tackle Braden Smith dealing with an injury. Last week, the Falcons lost to the Panthers. I think this is as low as they're going to go in the market. You got to remember that game was played in horrendous weather conditions. Ritter gave it away with the worst pick I've ever seen in an NFL game. And they were also playing without McGarry and Lindstrom, 2 of really good offensive linemen. They were also playing without Onyemata. I think all 3 will be back. They were close to all playing. I thought they were actually going to play, and then I was going to bet the Falcons, and they didn't. But they went through warm-ups, and so I would assume they play here, which they basically couldn't run it to the right side of they just had to try to run it to the left side of the line the entire game last week. And then they had no one in the middle because they had to put their streak got hurt. They had to put him on IR. So I think Onyemata, McGarry, and Lindstrom should be back, which will provide a boost in the trenches. But the Colts, also one of the luckier teams in the NFL per our luck rankings. And you're not going to be able to run on Atlanta, assuming Onyemata's back. Their run D's been good. Minshew has a flurry of turnovers coming. He's 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the year, despite 12 big-time throws, 21 turnover-worthy plays. And the Colts, look, I have a lot of respect for Shane Steichen. I think he's a hell of a coach. I think the Eagles really miss him. It's one of the things that's going wrong there right now. But, it's going to be up to Minshew without Pittman here. And there's turnovers coming. And I think the Colts are just at the peak of their market value. Let's look at what the Colts have done since October 1st. They have 5 losses to the Rams, Jags, Browns with PJ Walker, Saints, and Bengals with Jake Browning. All those teams in the playoff mix, even though Browning and Walker were 2 of their losses. Fine. Who are their 6 wins? Titans twice, one of them in overtime because the punter got hurt. The Panthers, the Patriots in London, in a game they were outgained by, I think, 100 yards. The Bucks and the Steelers. Those are their 6 wins over the past 2 months, or 3 months, I should say. 13-5 turnover margin in those games. 3 of those 6 teams that they beat have now benched their quarterbacks that they faced. They were outplayed and outgained in 4 of the 6. On the season, 5-2 in 1 possession games, the second most takeaways in the league with 24. I mean, this team has just been getting very fortunate and not beating anyone really respectable since that Ravens win in overtime, getting very lucky in close games. Minshew has some turnover regression coming, and the defense is just bad. It's like the D-line is good, and Kenny Moore is a hell of a slot. But other than that, you can throw on them, and I think that's where I really like this change to going to Taylor Heineke, who will give them a better shot of attacking downfield. And Ritter just literally has given away so many games just with, here's the ball, like inexplicable turnovers. And the Falcons have been on the opposite end of the spectrum of the Colts. They're 2-5 over their past 7 games, 1-5 in games decided by 5 or less. They lost by 5, 3 on a final minute touchdown, 2 on a last second field goal, 4 on a last minute touchdown, and 2 on a last second field goal. 5 losses by a combined 16 points, 4 of which came in a final second touchdown or field goal. So they've been getting extremely unlucky. I don't think they're as bad as people think. I think they get this win at home. Give me Atlanta Falcons -1.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Falcons are bad in terms of like they're playing below their talent level because of a combination of Ritter and I think just Arthur Smith is
coaching.
He's out there. He's out thinking himself this year. But like I've been saying, this Colts team, you've been saying it too. This Colts team is fraudulent. I mean, we should, like you said, Steichen, great job, but there's only so much you can do with this type of team, and I think at some point it's going to come back. They're going to come back down to earth. I don't know how Minshew's been getting away with this, with just putting this ball up for grabs, and he hasn't really paid as much as he should. The Falcons defense playing well, even without Grady Jarrett. So that's big here. They can stop the run. That's also big. So I like this too. I'm mad. I think the Falcons were like a 2-point home dog at one point. So I'm mad I missed the line, but you're still kind of just picking the Falcons to win the game. I mean, our NFC South future up in flames these last 2 weeks. I mean, it's been bad, but hopefully the Falcons can get it back. I'll close it out. 3rd pick, 6th overall of the week 16 6-pack, going with the Cardinals +4 at the Chicago Bears. This is tough for me because I love the Bears. Think they're playing well, playing how I thought they would play for the entire year. But I also think the Bears have been getting lucky. Their defense has forced 14 turnovers over the last 4 games, 3 or more in each game. They've had a +6 turnover differential over those last 4 games. And I think this Arizona team is not as bad as it was earlier in the year. The defense is still bad, but we know Chicago and Justin Fields can turn the ball over, and kind of it almost doesn't matter what defense they're facing. They kind of play the same. Like they're going to make some big plays, and they're going to have some mind-numbing turnovers. But you look outside this Ram debacle, which you say it's a circle of life every year. The Rams just dust the Cardinals. But outside the Ram debacle, Cardinals beat the Falcons as a home dog. They lose to Houston on the road by 5, numerous chances to win or be closer than that. They beat Pittsburgh by 2 scores as a road dog. And then last week, respectable performance against the Niners. I mean, Niners are going to stomp you. You're one of the worst teams in the league, but they did outgain San Francisco by 30. They put up over 400 yards of offense on the Niners. They put up 29 points. They ran the ball well. And then you got, this kind of spot. I'm going to keep backing it until it fails. Kyler Murray, road underdog, 15-4 with 2 pushes in his career, 79% against the spread. And as much as I like this Bear team, I think we're kind of at the top of the market here. I don't think this Bear team should be favored by more than a field goal, even though they're at home against anyone at this point. So going with the Cardinals here. Kyler Murray, road dog, usually cashes. probably I could see a Bears win by 3 in this spot. So give me the Cards +4. Anything over a field goal, like it.
Yeah, I got nothing here. My darling Bears. I backed them 3 times.
Right.
In the
Yeah.
past month, they got me wins. I hadn't bet them for years before them, but it became semi-obsessed with them, but don't see any value in them this week. No strong field, but yeah, asking the Bears to win by margin, taking the dog here. I don't hate it. I'll root you in. Nothing here for me.
All right. So to recap, stuck Baltimore +5.5, Chargers +12, Falcons -1. I got the Vikes +3, Steelers +2, Cards +4. So you got, let's see, Lamar, Easton Stick, and Taylor Heineke. I got Nick Mullins, Mason Rudolph, and Kyler. So kind of, I mean, Lamar's better than Kyler, but still kind of the same quarterback situation here. All right, that is going to wrap it for our Week 16 Sunday 6-pack.